tone places. Liz Taylor is not a style, and even Lana Turner's smile. Something he can't see. My baby don't care who knows it. My baby just cares for me. Baby, my baby don't care for shows, and he don't even care for clothes. He cares for me. My baby don't care for cars and races. Baby don't care for. He don't care for high-tone places. Liz Taylor is not his style, and even Liberace smile. Something he can't see is something he can't see. I wonder what's wrong with baby. My baby just cares for. My baby just cares for. My baby just cares for me.
Good morning, Revolution. You're the very best friend I ever had. We're going to pal around together from now on. Say, listen, Revolution. You know, the boss where I used to work, the guy that gave me air to cut down expenses, he wrote a long letter to the papers about you. Said you was a troublemaker, an alien enemy. In other words, a son of a bitch. He called up the police and told them to watch out for a guy named Revolution. You see, the boss knows you're my friend. He sees us hanging out together. He knows we're hungry and ragged and ain't got a damn thing in this world and are gonna do something about it. The boss has got all he needs. Certainly, eats well, owns a lot of houses, goes vacationing, breaks strikes, runs politics, bribes police, pays off Congress, and struts all over the earth. But me, I ain't never had enough to eat. Me, I ain't never been warm in the winter. Me, I ain't never known security. All my life been living hand to mouth, hand to mouth, hand to mouth. Listen, Revolution, we're buddies. See, together we can take everything. Factories, arsenals, houses, ships, railroads, forests, fields, orchards, bus lines, telegraphs, radios, Jesus, raise hell with radios. Steel mills, coal mines, oil wells, gas, all the tools of production, great day in the morning. Everything. And turn them over to people who work. Rule them and run us for us people who work. Boy, them radios, broadcasting that very first morning to USSR. Another member, the international Soviets done come. Greetings to the socialist Soviet republics. Hey, you rising workers everywhere, greetings. And we'll sign it, Germany. Sign it, China. Sign it, Africa. Sign it, Poland. Sign it, Italy. Sign it, America. Sign it with one name, worker. On that day when no one will be hungry, cold, oppressed, anywhere in the world again. I've been starving too long. Ain't you?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the People's Forum, and also a very, very happy Black and Red Books Day. Has anyone ever celebrated it with us before? Okay, cool. Well, that means we've got a lot of newcomers. I'll talk a bit about what Red Books Day is, but just to get us started, we just heard Jalen, poet, also person who works here at the People's Forum, read Good Morning Revolution by Langston Hughes. February 1st was the 125th birthday of Langston Hughes, who was a revolutionary poet that we read a lot in school, perhaps just, studying the history of the Harlem Renaissance, right? But we don't often hear about his work as a committed and fierce artist and advocate for internationalism and anti-imperialist struggle. Hughes envisioned, in his words, a day when no one will be hungry, cold, oppressed, anywhere in the world again. And I feel like we can resonate with that, right? And his writing persistently returned to the pursuit for a horizon of liberation, even in a moment when there was broad political repression happening, right? And that is why it's crucial for him as a writer to be saying all of these things, to be putting forth these ideas, to be nourishing us as we resonate with his message, as we feel this message. And that's the work of revolutionary artists. And so it felt like a very fitting and a beautiful way to start the program for this Black and Red Books Day, as we ourselves evaluate an ever-changing political landscape, as well as evaluate our own role in shaping its future. And so we celebrate this day every year, and you guys, among hundreds of thousands of people across the world who are also celebrating this day, who are taking this time to commemorate radical literature, their authors, their movements, the spaces that uplift those voices. But, what does it mean to read a red book, especially in this time when the world is demanding so much of us, right? Everyone here a reader? It's okay if you're not. Okay, cool. Well, if you aren't, I encourage you to take up a book because books have so much to offer us. I think we know when they teach us in school, they give us books to read. It's often so that we can write an essay, so that we can do a presentation in class, and it's not necessarily so that we remember it for the future, right? It's so that we can get a grade, we can do whatever, and that's how reading has been presented to us. But us as revolutionary readers, we know that reading is an exercise. It's a muscle we have to practice because it makes us stronger in struggle. It teaches us lessons from the past, from movements that have walked this path before. Maybe it looked a little bit different then, but they have so much to impart to us. Their failures, their successes, their strategies, their tactics, and there's so much we can learn from. And so, maybe many of us read the Communist Manifesto in high school or college, if you were lucky, I guess. But it was often still offered to us as a historical text, right? It was something separate from the present. It had no relevance to today. It was just something that we could observe. Oh, that happened. What an interesting idea. But they don't tell us that it is actually something that moved millions of people to fight for national liberation. It moved millions of people. It presented the idea that it was workers who change history. It was the masses that make the world possible. And so that's why it's the book that we uplift on Red Books Day, not because it is, the pinnacle text. In many ways it is, but it's also because it's one of the most translated texts in history. Behind me, we do this every year. We put up all of the covers that we can find of the Communist Manifesto. In fact, this isn't even all of them. I still have a huge folder with printouts. We just put up whatever we can. But that's just a testament to see how many people this message inspired. Right? How many people and also how many movements they inspired to action. And so we know that sharing this revolutionary knowledge, though, doesn't come without a risk. The tradition of Red Books Day was actually born out of a tragedy when Govind Pansare, who is an Indian communist leader, was assassinated. And so that was kind of a moment when it became urgent for us to take charge, to actually stand in defense of the revolutionary books that inspire us, their authors, but also to take the offense, right? To share their ideas, to be on the attack, to spread it in a world where they're trying to suppress that message because they don't want us to know these histories. Like I said, all of our education has circled around the fact that none of this history is relevant to us, but history teaches us so much. And so this month also marks 100 years of Black History Month. It was first established as Negro History Week in 1926 by Black historian Dr. Carter G. Woodson and the Association of the Study of African American Life and History, but it eventually transformed into what we know as Black History Month today, which is a commemoration of Black life in the United States and stood at a time for reflection and reverence of the experience of Black Americans. But a century later, the call to honor the legacy of Black life in America is a pertinent study of the struggle for Black determination, for dignity and liberation, but it's also a call to action. Because we're watching right now as the Trump administration attempts to turn the tide back on all of the struggles that we won, all of the rights that we won over the civil rights movement and beyond, be that right now as we're watching them erase monuments or censor curriculums, or even, as we of course are seeing today, racially profiling people on the streets to kidnap them, and even murder them and those who fight alongside them. And so, as we remember this long history of Black struggle, we also remember that it is not a history of individual achievement, but it's one of organized action and of collective struggle, of Black people who understood that liberation would not be granted, but only won through struggle, right? Because to win, we have to fight. And when we fight, we win, right? Okay. So Red Books Day also happens to be the birthday of two Black women revolutionary leaders who fought against white supremacy and revealed so much to us. One of them is Claudia Jones. Has anyone heard of her? Okay, amazing. If not, I won't get too into it because we have two amazing people who are about to dig into the history. But Claudia Jones and Nina Simone. I'll also get into the shirt later. But, that kind of shows us what history, it's a coincidence in many ways, but it's also a convergence of things. Because also today is also the day when Malcolm X was assassinated. And so it is a celebration, but it is also a reverent commemoration of all of these ways that history overlaps with each other. Because they were leaders, they were artists, they were pioneers who all interrogated the world around them. And they saw a system that was not built for them, but was working just as designed. And I feel like we're seeing that today. But as they studied and examined the world, they also fought for a better one. Again, I'll let the conversation take the lead. But that's just to say, we're called here today. We called it Black and Red Books Day, not just again because it's a coincidence, but we can see how the fight for Black liberation has always been deeply intertwined with the fight for working class people everywhere. One cannot happen without the other. And we take that as a duty, as a responsibility, right? And that's why I'm so glad to see you all here today on Black and Red Books Day. And so we're here to bring these struggles together. We'll be having a a conversation with two amazing organizers, and then we'll have a musical tribute, and then we'll also have screen printing because, all of our struggles can't happen with culture, it can't happen with art because that's what nourishes us in the struggle. And that's why we're here to celebrate Red Books and also to celebrate 100 years of Black History Month. So you ready to get started? Okay, amazing. So I'll start off by introducing our speakers today. I'm honored to introduce Manolo de los Santos and Dr. Rosemari Mealy, who are two fighters and leaders and pioneers in the struggle for Black liberation, for socialism, and internationalism. I'm gonna give them their due credit. So Manolo is the founder. Oh, no.
No intros.
Okay, well, I'll let their words speak for themselves. Enjoy their conversation.
And mostly because I want to just clarify that the pioneer is Rosemari, not the both of us. The short version of my intro is, my name is Manolo. I work here at the People's Forum. And I've been lucky to know Rosemari Mealy for some years now. I was a teenager getting involved in Cuba Solidarity, in the left, in the revolutionary movements here in the US, in New York specifically. And Rosemari was our reference, is our reference for what it means to be Black, revolutionary, communist, and internationalist. So rather than give, I would say, a pro forma introduction of Rosemari, I actually wanted to propose to all of you, let's get to know Rosemari together. Because your political journey is, in a sense, a reflection of the past several decades of struggle in the United States, but struggle across the globe. So, first of all, welcome again to the People's Forum, your home. But tell us a little bit about, where does young Rosemari start? Geographically and politically.
Okay. Thank you, Manolo, and afternoon, everyone. It's been a long history. I'll be transparent. I just had my 85th birthday. And I just want to also introduce my son, Mark, who was born 3 days after Malcolm was assassinated. And that's a reference point right there. And then my husband, Sam Anderson, who is the author of Black Holocaust for Beginners and also a longtime activist. But before that, I grew up in the southern part of the United States. I grew up in Virginia. Now the next point, I don't think you're gonna say, you're not gonna go, wow. I grew up during the segregation era, when it was white toilets and black toilets, right? Colored. And my father actually was, he was a member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. And to be in the South, in the Virginia, and to be involved in that was revolutionary, right? My mother was a home caretaker. She worked for white folk, but she was very quiet. But my father was the one who used to tell us, you go where they say you shouldn't go, right? And that was kind of engraved in my head. And one way that that was challenged, when my cousins from the north would come to visit, we would go to the country store, and we would go into the white toilets, and we would shit in the white toilets, right? But we would come out feeling satisfied that we was free of all that shit. And so my father was warned that you need to get that girl out of here, right? But it took some time for that to happen. Meanwhile, attending public schools up until high school, the last 2 years of high school, we celebrated Negro History Week. So we knew who Carter G. Woodson was. In fact, Cartersville, Virginia was not very far from where he was born, and so therefore we had a reference point of this great man who had created Negro History Week, and that he was our reference point. So we grew up with a sense of black pride, right? Now, how it was manifested, you had to be very, very careful, because you had to travel two worlds. But I hated those worlds. I really hated them, And I especially hated the times when the buses would come. It would be the white buses and then the black buses. And we would always have this ragtag school bus. And I would question, why do we have the ragtag bus? And then the buses would pass us, and the white kids would call us niggers, and they would throw things out. So this ingrained in me this hatred for racism. So fast forward a bit. Yeah, you want to stop there?
No, I don't want to stop you. Actually, I want to inquire a little bit more, because you mentioned something that's real and very important, which is our people have felt hatred, have felt righteous anger.
Yeah.
That has been a distinction, though, that in the black community, particularly in the history of the United States, that hatred and that anger have usually turned into organization, have usually become resistance. True. In a way that is, I would say, the motor of the history of struggle in the United States. Where does your journey go from, I feel angry, I want to shit in white people's toilets, to I need to join, be part of something, build against this?
Well, something happened before then. It's also after Brown v. Board of Ed, when supposedly the South is supposed to integrate the schools. But of course, in my town, the white folks set up these white Christian nationalist schools. And so therefore, there was really no integration, really.
So Turning Point USA 1954 version.
Absolutely. So what happened was I ended up going to an all-women's Catholic college. It's called St. Francis de Sales High School for Girls in Powhatan, Virginia, right? And there was a St. Emma's Military Academy for the boys existed not far. And these were the Holy Ghost fathers that started Xavier University in New Orleans and what have you. So my first encounter now with white people are white nuns. Unfortunately, the first black nun that we got, they sent her off to an Indian reservation, because the order was, Catherine Drexel's order was for Indian and Negroes, right? But anyway, it was that orientation that I began to see that not all white people were, quote unquote, as Leroy Jones and others defined they were not all devils, okay? So my orientation shifted, that they could be human, and even though it was missionary type benevolence, but there was some genuine concern for us as black girls, So now organizationally, it's the educational system, right? I later, so organizationally, it took, I would say, maybe 5 or 7 years later, I ended up integrating an all-women's, a part of a group of black women to integrate an all-women's Catholic college in Wisconsin. But I spent most of my time over at the University of Wisconsin. Fran Beal, another sister who was in SNCC, I didn't know her then, but I saw how radical the University of Wisconsin was than where I was going, to Edgewood College of the Sacred Heart. And meanwhile, we're seeing all this happening on TV of the dogs biting people, and the struggles that are going on in the South. We're talking about 60, 61, 62, 63. I didn't really get involved in an organization, an ideological organization, but what happened, I just did not want to remain on that campus, and I was eventually told that I was going to be expelled anyway, because
they keep pushing you out of places, huh?
all the time, because, and this is so interesting, in the Catholic schools, and as folk who are here know, philosophy of nature is supposed to be like one of the most radical, it's supposed to be one of the most radical forms of within the church structure, right? So I was in a course in this, we were just talking about integration. And so we got into a discussion about St. Thomas Aquinas. And I understood who he was, but I also saw St. Thomas Aquinas being something more than what we were being taught. I saw him more radical than what we were being taught. So in a class, this nun said to me, I said to her, well, sister, if I go back north and I'm walking down the street and somebody walks up behind me and says, hey, sister, I'm going to rape you, what am I supposed to do? Turn around and say, no, St. Thomas says you're not supposed to do that? And she says, stop that. You're out of here you're here by the grace of God. So you're going to be out of here. Well, so what am I going to do? I'm being expelled from this situation. Well, I decided, okay, well, I'm going to be out of there anyway. So I ended up coming back to Philadelphia, and I got a job working for Bell Telephone Company, right, as an information operator. And we were not allowed to be unionized, but I also saw the significance of it wasn't even unionized at that point, but I also saw how women, and this is totally women working as telephone operators. I was an information operator. And so I started meeting with these young women about what our conditions were. And it wasn't a formal situation, but I'm bringing, I guess you could say that this was probably one of my first formal organizing efforts, bringing these sisters together, meeting them at home, and we decided to take our grievances to the boss at Bell Telephone Company. And I don't remember, but I do remember things did kind of shift and change in our unit, right? But I wanted to do something more, And the chronology of this whole thing may be out of sync right now, but I remember that I wanted to go south, because that's where the action was happening. So I ended up going to Anniston, Alabama, where I worked in a voter registration project. That was the United Church of Christ. But the more radical things are happening with SNCC, but I don't join SNCC because I become pregnant and I have to end up coming back to New York, right? But I was also very interested in the arts. And I wrote poetry, and I sang, I danced, and I became a part of a HARU, a Harlem Action Youth Organization arts program. And that was another formative way of organizing, but using art as a way to educate and politicize people, because black arts during this period is flourishing, right?
So you're living through this period of this renaissance again of black art. The black freedom movement is escalating in its capacity. It's I would say, its push not for just civil rights, but for human rights, for the integrity of what it means to be black in this country. You're living at the same time period as the civil rights movement in the South, but also figures like Malcolm X in New York and in the North. You're seeing a lot of things happening.
Yes.
Eventually, there's the rise of the Black Panther Party. How does all of this sort of begin to shape and interact with who you are as a young black woman in this period?
I think being in New York, the most influential was Malcolm's teachings. And I didn't go to any of his rallies, but mainly, hearing about Malcolm, that was ingrained. And so when my son is born 3 days after Malcolm is assassinated, I began to think more about how do I impart that knowledge to him, and how do I become more political, how do I become more engaged, more involved now as a single parent. Now, this is the transition. The hub now is back to Philadelphia, where I become even more involved in the black arts movement, but organizationally. But there was something about it. It's also during the heavy black nationalist era, because black nationalism was the force behind the black arts movement. But I did meet folk in the arts movement who were members of the Communist Party, right? And I was attracted to the Communist Party. I flirted with the Communist Party. There was an attempt to recruit me to the Communist Party. But I went to study groups, and Tony Montero, who many of you know, and then there were some sisters in the party also that they were flirting with it too.
Just a small sort of question, because now you've left me intrigued. The Black Power movement, the Black nationalist movement is sort of in ascendance, but the communist movement is under heavy attack. I mean, we are still in the period after McCarthyism. Most communists are not openly identifying as communists in this time period, actually. It's actually the period before Angela Davis kind of comes out as like leading black communist figure in this country. Right. Henry Winston, black communist leader, has recently just come out of jail. Many of these black communist leaders are in jail. Claudia Jones has been deported from the United States. So what is running through your mind, again, in this time period that you say, hey, I want to flirt with the communists?
Because like I had read, we were reading Marx, and we were reading Engels, and we were reading, when you talk about the Communist Manifesto today, what was being said there, it was all coming together for me. But I was reluctant to join the party because of the racism that was being acknowledged by many of the people in the party. And I'm talking about 67, 68, 69, okay? And you're absolutely right, but I'm still attracted to it, right? But meanwhile, the reparations movement is also gaining steam. And Jim Foreman had founded, he had gone and wrote the Black Manifesto, which was challenging black churches to give up some money to organizations that they had historically allowed themselves to have collusion with.
Are you saying that Minnesota wasn't the first time black people have interrupted churches to demand reparations for justice?
Definitely not. It was not. And that's an important piece of history, right? So I don't remember exactly, but in Philadelphia, I also, by the way, I was trained initially as a family therapist. And that's very important as we talk to my ascendancy to the Black Panther Party. I'm also organizing. I'm working for the YW, first the school system. As an artist, I started a program called the Granny Reed Show, where I would go into schools and dressed up as a grandmother, reading all this books and what have you to children. And then I left that job, and then I got a job working with the YWCA. And I actually allowed the YWCA to become co-ed in South Philadelphia, where it's also the hippie era, right? And everybody, people saw me now as a hippie, I always dressed like this. This is not anything new, folks. So I kind of like started an underground situation where young boys and girls would come to the Y, and also educational classes using my Granny Reed experience. And so I also was then, the party thing, going to the party meetings, but I'm also introduced to the Black reparations movement. And I become involved in the reparations movement with Brother Mohammed Kenyatta, another very important brother, his grandson ran for office in Pennsylvania. I became one of the editors of the Manifesto, which is the paper of the reparations movement. I'm also living now in a commune with white folks. I won't tell you how I got there. A radical commune, a resistance commune. And these are folk who are anti-war. Many of them are they're leftists. But it was a great experience for me to be living in this commune because I had access to all of these things that the mother country radicals had access to. But it was a mutual experience. Okay, so this is allowing me to do the manifesto work. And by the way, I ended up quitting my job as a therapist, and I'll tell you what happened there. So a lot of things are going on. The Communist Party, the Black Manifesto, but I'm seeing the contradictions, and I need clarity. I need ideological clarity, because it's not that I'm all over the place, but I'm trying to figure out, as a Black woman, organizer, doing community-based work, where do I fit into this? And I'm not the only one. And so there's discussions with other Black women about this. I guess the really period that changed all of this was in our commune, we had a print shop in the basement. This place reminds me a lot of it. A lot was going on, people going in and out, because the media files had been stolen from Media, Pennsylvania. I don't know if people got to study that and read that. And it just so happens that some of the people who lived in our commune were a part of having stolen those files. But we had a good legal team. Lawyers lived in the commune, and we had cars and everything. The Black Panther Party is not very far from our commune. And they used to come over to run leaflets and what have you, and use our cars. And of course, in the morning, I would help to take food to the breakfast program and what have you. But I didn't really agree with the Black Panther Party either, What was it about it that I didn't agree with it? I wasn't clear in terms of their whole, I knew about armed self-defense and how important that was, but I also thought that the approach to the above ground and underground discussions, that really wasn't going to go down too well. And it didn't, ultimately, with the number of political prisoners that we had. Okay, so Fred Hampton gets murdered, assassinated. And the Black Panther Party comes to our commune, and they ask if we can drive out to Chicago, because the Panthers have organized a situation where they want people from all over the country to come and to walk into this space where he was assassinated, along with Mark Clark, and his wife, of course, was shot. So we said yes. Mumia Abdul-Jamal, I'll never forget, he was only like 15 years old by then. We got in this car and we drove all the way out to Chicago. And some of you are here, you may have heard the story before, but I love telling the story because it kind of puts into context that history. And of course, I've left out a lot of stuff that you will never know and people will never know. But that's the way biographies go, right? And you're not embellishing who you are either. You're just being truthful, and you know who your audience is and will be in the future in archives. So when I went into this place, this house where Fred Hampton had been assassinated, there was these blood-stained mattresses. And I looked, and I was horrified, you know, and just to see the blood, the bullet holes in the window, on the walls. And when I came back to Philadelphia, I never went to my job at Children's Hospital. I never went back because I felt that it was time that I had to really make a full commitment to this, you know, organizationally. You know, as an organizer, you know, you build, but you need a reference. You need a reference point. So I joined the Black Panther Party, and it was the murder, the assassination of Fred Hampton. Okay, so now, it's a wonder that I haven't served time, I'll tell you that. Oh, I'm lucky. But anyway, so in Philadelphia, because I'm coming into the party with skills, you know, and I'm a little older than most folks are, contrary to what you hear about who was members of the party. I went into the party knowingly about what it was. It's under attack, much like the CP had been, but not so much from the ideological perspective, but from the activist perspective and its standing with guns, like Robert Williams had done, right, defense. Okay, so as soon as I get into the Black Panther Party, I'm inaugurated as a lieutenant of information, right? So that's my task, to make sure that information is put out, contributing to the Black Panther paper, selling papers on the street, coming in contact with brothers from the Nation of Islam, telling us that we shouldn't be in the street as women with our short skirts on and what have you, but being able to sell papers on one corner and their papers on the other. But soon as I got into the party, well, not shortly after, the bust occurred in New Haven of Bobby Seale and all of those sisters who were accused with murdering Alex Raxley by an agent who, by the way, is the same agent that infiltrated Fred Hampton. This guy was moving around everywhere. And so my work in the Panther Party, I have to say, it was one of the most important periods of my life. It was a very difficult period of my life, especially having to separate from my son because we sent our kids away for protection, and that's a whole nother story. But we studied, you know, and so I'm coming in already with having an ideological perspective, but they're heavy on Mao, right? And Marx is, he's European, but the philosophy, yes, there's some things, but Engels, and it's in this context that Afeni Shakur and I, we revamped some of the curriculum of the party, but it was a study piece that was very important to me. And real quickly, I used my artistic skills as a puppeteer, working with the children in the liberation schools. So the party helped to kind of consolidate to some level my ideological viewpoints, but I'm telling you, I didn't agree totally with it, but I was down for whatever happened serving the people.
Well, I want to pick up from there. I mean, obviously, there's very little, I think there are very few scenarios in which one fully agrees with every aspect of anything, but I think that revolutionaries builds are about building a collective process. Your experience going through these stages from growing up in the South, organizing in cities like Philadelphia and New York, your own sort of coming to terms with the need to organize and sort of come for that ideological clarity. I guess I want to connect to one of the debates that often gets brought up. We're looking at this now 178 years after the publication of the Communist Manifesto, hundreds of years into the celebration of Black History Month, but also looking at the legacy that you are not the first black revolutionary.
No, of course not.
You come in succession or in a line of many others before you, many others alongside you, many have come after you. Often the debates gets reduced, well, you either have to focus on race or you have to focus on class. It's a race or class question.
Yeah, yes.
We want to kind of leave that behind, but I do want to ask, because it is Red Books Day, and we are famously also emphasizing that we're black and red, not just today, but every day. What does it mean, you know, after all these experiences, all these moments and periods of your struggle, of your life with us on this planet, how do you define what it means to be a black revolutionary?
Fundamentally, you're opposed to this system, your opposition to capitalism, and you understand what it means to challenge it. In the stages of capitalism, you know, imperialism with fascism, you understand that. So if you're going to understand that, theoretically, then you need to be able to be in something or to be a part of something that is going to allow you to act out the theory. Because we know about the so-called armchair revolutionaries who theorize, but where's the practice? And so for me, it was putting the theory into practice in the work, you know? And to also to be critical of Marx and to be critical of Lenin, but also to realize that that Communist Manifesto, the context of it fused into James Weldon Johnson's writings, to the writings of the Harlem Renaissance, to people like Harry Haywood. And by the way, we're talking about women who were critical in the party. Let's not forget our sister Lucy Parsons, who was a socialist, and by next month, her birthday is March 7th, we need to do something for that. So reading black communist women, especially Claudia Jones, reading her work and being an active member of the party was really important to me. And also Maida Springer Kemp, who was an organizer with the Ladies Garment Workers Union. She turned out to be anti-communist in the end, but she had some, you know, she flirted with it too, you know? And so it's the criticism of recognizing the history of communism and the history of the Communist Party, and how then does that apply to our situation as black folk in this country and the national question. We're not going to get into that, which, by the way, I had a lot of disagreements about that too. So it's pulling together all of that and then redefining yourself. And that's how being black and red in the US catapulted me to being an internationalist.
Which is where I want to get to next, because in a way, if the manifesto was born in Europe in 1848 in a very specific context, history propelled it in a very different direction. I mean, the fact that revolutions did not triumph in Germany or England, but they did triumph in backward, underdeveloped Russia, China, Vietnam, Cuba, Angola, Mozambique, really paints a different picture of what it means to be a communist. Geography, languages, cultures changed in the understanding of Marxism-Leninism. In fact, you could almost say that Marxism and Leninism are the theories of third world liberation. Your own life practice has led you to constantly be, whether it be with the struggle against apartheid, the struggle of people in Central America, the struggle of the people of Cuba and Venezuela. You have been, in the same way, kind of like a historical protagonist of many of these moments of solidarity internationalism. One of my earliest memories of Rosemari is seeing Rosemari and Fidel Castro. Why is it that, in particular, the Black freedom movement in the United States has always sort of taken very boldly and very loudly at much risk such a radical position of being connected to movements in the third world, and particularly socialist and communist movements in the third world?
Just, people, when the Communist Manifesto was written, and we were enslaved, so people might say, well, why would you want to use a document that really didn't address you, and you collectively? But I think you made an excellent point. I think what happens, one realized the teachings of Malcolm. That's very important, It's his anniversary of his assassination, but there is so much for us who are disciples of Malcolm to realize that Malcolm embraced an internationalist perspective that was also rooted in a recognition of the anti-colonial struggles. And so I think for many of us, it was Malcolm's teachings also, which allowed us, which freed us to say, it's okay, it's good, and then with the studying and understanding, he was moving in the direction his interrelationships with liberation movements, anti-colonial struggles, these were struggles that have been embraced in Mozambique, Guinea-Bissau, Congo, Brazzaville, all those African nations had embraced Marxism, but applying it in their own context, right? In developing out of neocolonial situations, rarely industrialized, right? But having access to the natural resources. So it's putting all that history together, I think, that then allows you to say that we're not in this struggle alone. This is a global struggle. And you just finished the book on the Tricontinental Congress. That was a lesson in itself, and the struggle to have a Tricontinental Congress, where the first one, we weren't even involved in it, right? But it took the beauty and the brilliance of Fidel to say, hey, look, we have to bring these anti-colonial movements together, and because we are a central part to the liberation of the world, right? And so that's important, and then you tie that into those of us in this country who are anti-colonialists, anti-imperialists. It just creates, I'm looking at that photograph over there of the growing and the weeding, it creates this multitude of voices and ideas that have come together, that have stretched across the globe to say, we are a part of this world international movement for humanity and our salvation. And so we embrace that. And especially as women, key, critical.
Can I bring up some TikTok drama?
Of course.
So I say this, Rosemari is very technologically advanced and up to date on all these things. Every time in the last few years there's been major upheavals, major, bursts of popular struggle in the United States, you often hear a set of black voices, or voices that identify as black in the United States, regardless of where their actual discourse comes from, but they identify as black, with a particular speech about, this is not our struggle. The struggle of immigrants in the United States, not our struggle. Right. We don't need to get involved. Yeah. People are being shot here and there, not our struggle. We paid our dues. And it's becoming quite prevalent, I wouldn't say among all black people, but definitely among a certain segment of youth, but also I would say there's a class element to it of upper middle class black people who want to sort of disengage. Right. What do you, as a black revolutionary, with all these decades of experience looking at precisely the interconnection between all these struggles, have to say to the TikTok drama?
Oh, I definitely know about the TikTok drama. I mean, I've been trying to counter it, and then I have another group of young people that I work with. They're called Carlotta's Warriors for
They're
Cuba.
Here in the audience.
And that's one of the things that we do. We try to use social media as a way to counteract this negativity and this lack of not so much lack of understanding, but want to maintain in this grip that is reactionary, right? Especially you saw a lot of this doing at the height of the struggles in Gaza, or the immigration struggle. Look, they voted for him, so now they want us to carry the load. Yeah, we know that, and we have to fight against that. But I think you're absolutely right. There is a class character to it, and that is a real challenge in this country. So I'm really about trying to unify people and using all the platforms that I have to bring folk together across the various struggles, and to say that if we don't collaborate together, then we will not be able to win. We cannot win, because they will pick us off once against the other. And I have a 20-year-old granddaughter, and I've been telling this story a couple of weeks ago. She said to me when I was explaining to her about the situation in Cuba now, the lack of resources, the whole issue with all of that. And she understands the Cuban Revolution. And so she said to me, Abuela, hope is resistance. If you have hope, that's an aspect of resistance, because if the empire knows that you don't have hope, then they will continue to attempt to smash you. And I think for some of the opposition that we're hearing in our communities about that's not our struggle over there is because people have lost hope, because they thought that the civil rights movement was going to be the answer. They thought that the affirmative action was going to be the answer. And now with fascism right in our face, they see that those struggles ended up being what it is now, and so they've lost hope. And so that's why I think, and I truly believe, that our energies now have to focus a lot on young people and building structures and infrastructures, organizational infrastructures that will bring, like what we see here, that will bring young people in, not at the high school level, but junior high, and even get them smaller than that, reintroducing the liberation school concepts. So we have a lot of work to do, and people are saying, well, we don't have much time to do it, but, we have to use every moment, I believe, every minute, like after this, I gotta go to the Bronx to talk to a group of members of the Black Liberation Army who are anarchists. So what do I say to them at this point, So, who still believe that anarchism is the way to go right now? But, that's another question. So I've got to struggle against that. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know if that answers your question. But
It does. And I guess it leads me to my next question, which is, where do we go from here? I mean, what makes us Marxists, Leninists, what makes us revolutionaries and socialists is that we're constantly thinking about what do we do now? And how do we build the struggle forward? At this moment, the Trump administration is essentially putting into action a plan to bring this country back to the era of open racism. Some elements of what the civil rights movement, affirmative action achieved, in a sense, are being fully rolled back. And not just in an attack against Black people in this country, but an attack, white American citizens are being shot in broad daylight in the US right now. What is the way forward? What has to be done in a moment like this to actively overcome fascism? Or should we just accept defeat?
Oh, no, we never, of course, we never accept defeat. That's the whole point.
I just needed someone to affirm it and say it loudly.
No, we don't, and this is where, you talk about here, look at Rubio on the stage in Munich. He laid out a global strategy for the world. And look at the number of those leaders who got up and clapped for them. Because, see, that's it. We're not alone with this thing. It's global, and so we had a friend once who was an organizer, a worker he used to say that imperialism is capitalism gone abroad, I used to think his name was Tyree Scott from Seattle. imperialism has consolidated itself. And so that's why being in the street, there's different levels, there's going to be, there are different strategies for different folks. Not everybody want to be out in the street. We can't send our people with green cards out in the street anymore. We've got to realize that the issue of immigration it's an issue that has to be brought into the community, right? Every issue that we're dealing with has to be brought into our work every day. Whether we're in the hospital with the nurses who just got off strike, the union, the working class exists, and we have to continue to engage and be engaged, and we have to support those who are being carted off to prison. I'm trained as a lawyer, so there's this whole group of lawyers who are amassing and have been around this resistance. The resistance is all front. So you say, where do we go from here? What do we do? We have to, I don't have a blueprint, but I can tell you that we cannot sit and watch television and use TikTok as the form of organizing. I said earlier, it's important to have, we have to institutional build, we have to build institutions, and they have to be trained, people have to be trained, and there's different ways to be trained. Ideologically, we have to be trained, because I'm sure we've said things here today that maybe some folk, well, what is she talking about? What is that reference point? And you know what, here's something that I can share. People need to read Freedom Dreams by Robin D.G. Kelley. Very important, because it's really contextualizing the content that we're having here about black communists being red and black. But there's also a piece of, I see the Lift Every Voice and Sing. Okay, check this out. Lift Every Voice and Sing, there's a communist revision of it. The words go, sing a song full of the strife that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope communism has brought us. Facing a red, red sun of a new day begun, let us fight on till victory is won. And that was revised in 1932.
Well, Rosemari, I think you finished us off with the right melody. There is this vibrant history of which you're a part of, we are all a part of.
What about you? What keeps you going?
Oh,
my emails to you telling you to...
I mean, I would say it's a mix of things. It's your text messages, emails, Cuba, the
Yes.
resistance of the people in Cuba
Yes.
keeps me going.
Yes.
Seeing young people across the African continent organize against U.S. and European imperialism, the Alliance of Sahel States keeps me going. Seeing thousands, tens of thousands of high school students in the U.S. right now walking out of their schools almost daily in protest of ICE. Seeing the Somali students in Minnesota taking leadership to build a national shutdown. Endless things keep me excited and actually really hopeful that we have this great opportunity, historical opportunity here in the US to actually change the whole world. We have to be in concrete solidarity with the people of the world, but the world actually needs revolution in the United States to happen.
Absolutely.
So we build on the legacy of the African Blood Brotherhood, we build on the legacy of the Black Panthers, we build on the legacy of women and men across times and places and geographies, from Nat Turner to Carlota, who have all understood that the struggle for black freedom does not begin or end with one person, or two or three, but is actually a collective fight for our collective humanity. So I would like to ask for a huge round of applause for Rosemari Mealy.
And I also think that we have to bridge the culture, you know, starting with the poetry. I mean, I love Bruce Springsteen's new song, you know, but we need our black artists to come out with something like that. But the culture becomes a cement for a lot of this too, and that's why it's so important to integrate our culture into this process. Very important.
Completely true. And I would strongly recommend, people read Rosemary's prolific journalism, that they read her writings on Fidel and Malcolm, that you take a look again at the YouTube and actually go through all the names that she's mentioned and do long, deep AI searches of everything, because I feel like today was a masterclass in the history of the Black freedom struggle, and we only touched a little bit. There's so much more that we could be talking about, but thank you again, Rosemary.
Thank you for inviting me.
Please keep clapping. I think we all agree. The applause makes it clear that we're incredibly grateful to Rosemary, to this conversation we're happening. As she said, like, it's up to us to chart the path forward, and I think that's the task that we're given today, right? And you know, I think the last note about revolutionary culture is also crucial, which is why we're about to have a beautiful musical performance. I'm obviously stalling for time a little. But it's easy to stall for time when there's so much to talk about with revolutionary culture. That's just to say, for example, today we're honoring Nina Simone. I'm sure you've all heard of Nina Simone. Amazing. I'll let Desiree talk about her a bit, but I just want to talk about my shirt a little bit just because it's a good anecdote for the kind of impact you had. You might think that I got this shirt in the US, but I actually got it in Brazil. I got it in Brazil at a political education school for workers who are involved in the struggle. I walked into the store, I saw it there, I couldn't believe it was there, but also in many ways I could believe it was there. Because her art, her culture, her message that she imparts to us is the way she cogently puts forth our deepest desires, the hopes that we see, the dreams, but also the deep grief that we feel when we see the world as it is. And I think those are all important things that culture imparts to us, because it teaches us so much about how we actually experience the world. How do we understand it politically? At least that's what good revolutionary art does. Around us, we actually have a photo exhibit from Venezuela. We had it planned months ago, but especially in the light of the attacks on the Venezuelan people, we're seeing it's crucial to actually see what it means to listen to Venezuelans. Look around you. These are Venezuelans on the walls. These are the workers who are invested in their own process, their sovereign process. Manolo also talked about Cuba. I'm also going to give 2 pitches for fundraising today. One is an urgent one. I think you might have heard about Trump's recent attacks on Cuba, but we know this is part of a long legacy of attacks on the Cuban people, over 60 years of blockade, falsely putting them on the list of state sponsors of terrorism, and now further enacting an executive order that says that they won't get a drop of fuel on the island, which is a shame. That means families are without power. That means hospitals don't have what they need to actually provide care. So we have an ongoing fundraiser, part of our Let Cuba Live campaign. It's at letcubalive.info to send solar panels to hospitals so that they can kind of go around this fuel blockade and actually provide care. And we know that Cubans have prioritized medicine for so long. So I really invite you and charge you, and more than invite you, it's part of our task to be able to provide for these struggles. And then finally, I also want to say that the People's Forum is also a project of the people. I think Rosemary was talking about building institutions. And places like this are so crucial. It's important for us to be able to gather, to speak to each other, to hear from each other, learn from each other, see beautiful art. We have a class going on right now upstairs on Palestine. We have movie screenings every Thursday. There's really so much to explore at the People's Forum. So if you haven't been here before, I invite you to come back again. But I also invite you to donate, because this place literally would not exist without all of you. And I mean that because you are here in the space, but also I mean that materially, financially. And so if you're able to have a recurring donation, amazing. If you're able to donate once, that's also good. but it's peoplesforum.org/future. If you have any questions, please come to any of the staff. We're all here celebrating Red Books Day today. And so finally, I want to introduce our musical artist who will be giving a tribute to Nina Simone tonight. We used to have a sandwich board outside of the People's Forum. It was just like a chalkboard, but it had a Nina Simone quote on it about where she talked about what it meant to have conversations. I think it was with Lorraine Hansberry, but basically to say, it was always Marx, it was always Lenin, real girl talk. So I'll let real girl talk happen. I would love your help in welcoming Desiree Jaha and Dexter Burke.
Hello, everyone. Hey. Okay. Hope I can do it justice. Can you see me? Okay. Baby, you understand me now. If sometimes you see that I'm mad, don't you know no one alive can always be an angel? When everything goes wrong, you see some bad. But I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood. Oh. You know, sometimes, baby, I'm so carefree with a joy that's hard to hide. And then sometimes again, I see that all I have is worry. And then you're bound to see my other side. But I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood. If I seem edgy, I want you to know I never mean to take it out on you. Life has its problems, and I have more than my share. But that's one thing I never mean to do, 'cause I love you. Oh, baby, I'm just human. Don't you know I have faults like anyone? Sometimes I find myself alone, regretting some little foolish thing, some simple thing that I've done. But I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood. Don't let me be misunderstood. Oh, I work so hard, so don't let me Thank you. I appreciate Manolo and Rosemary talking about righteous anger, because I think that's what Nina was thinking when she sang and recorded that. Yes, sweetheart. Yeah, there's always that moment in time where anger turns into what do we do now? And I think that's what was talked about, and we were given a lot of gifts on what we're supposed to do now after this. So for me, I remember I was on campus at the death of Mike Brown, and I walked, and that was the first time I felt really angry, and I felt enraged when Breonna was passed. And I think that all of us have countless memories of when that anger switched. And I think that that song is a beautiful representation of you can hold both things at the same time. You can be an angry individual because of what's happening, and you can also be a person who doesn't want to be all that all the time and not have that rage envelop them all the time. So anyway, another song that we're going to do that's very important to this movement is coming up next. And I believe that, again, talking about righteous anger, Billie Holiday made this one famous. I'll give you a couple guesses. And then Nina sang it as well. That's all the guesses you're getting. Okay. So. Southern trees bearing strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the roots, black bodies swinging in the sun. Strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene through the gallant south, them big bulging eyes the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, clean and fresh. Then the sudden smell of burning fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rise, for the to drive. Here is a strange and bitter cry. Thank you. I'd like to take this time to recognize my friend over here, that's Dexter Burke on keyboard. I also like to take this opportunity to thank the People's Forum again and again and again and again and again for having me. Every time I come here, I learn something new. And I think that talks to the journey of Nina Simone. As mentioned, it's her birthday today. And if I had a musical Mount Rushmore of people who I feel are like on my shoulder every time I sing, she's 100% one of them and has been one of them for quite some time. I remember that my grandfather gave me her first album, Little Girl Blue, and I was sweeping my dorm room. And the first time I heard Don't Smoke in Bed, I was like, wow, you can make sound like that? And after learning more about her story and reading her autobiography, I realized that she is a kindred spirit of mine. Because she, too, like I, came into this just from the music situation. She decided that she just wanted to make some money so she can get rent, right? She started to play gigs and do her thing. And it was with the help of people around her that she became politically activated. Her best friend, Lorraine Hansberry, that was mentioned earlier, really shaped her political ideologies much later on in her life. And I appreciate that through line because we forget that these people who have been big figures in our movement were humans who just decided one day that they needed to pay rent, and they needed to make money, and they needed to buy groceries just like the rest of us. And like somebody, a friend gave them a book, and then their minds were changed, right? So the ability to be bigger than your lifespan is available in all of us. And I think Nina is a huge, huge example of her music and her legacy being bigger than her lifespan. So that said, we're gonna close with one of her favorite songs that she sings, and she sings it specifically in places like this. For young folks, she loves doing it in college settings. She loves it, as if she's still here with me. Oops. She loved doing it in college settings. She loved doing it in her college tour era in order to kind of bolster the young folks into changing their minds and thinking new and seeing that their legacy can be bigger than their own lifespan. So this is Young, Gifted, and Black, okay? It's requiring class participation, okay? Thank you. All right, so we're gonna sing something. If you feel so inclined, right, sing with me. I'll point to you when it's your time. You only have to do it twice, okay? So the words are young, gifted, and black. I'm gonna sing it once with my friend here, and then we're gonna sing it together. Capiche? Yes, you can tell. Thank you. You can tell my teacher. All right. Just do the little part. Young, gifted, and black. You can do that, right? Sing with me. Ready? 1, 2, here you go. Young, gifted, and black. That's pretty good. Last time with your ghost. Ready? 1, 2, and. There you go. We're ready now, okay? So, when I point to you, that's your time. We're getting it right at the beginning, all right? So, thank you again for the People's Forum for having me. Thank you to the spirit of Nina Simone, to the spirit of Malcolm X, to the spirit of Black and Red Books Day for bringing us all together. So, again, without further ado, here's Young, Gifted, and Black. Ready? 1, 2, Young, gifted, and black. Good job. Oh, what a lovely, precious dream. Hey, you are. Open your heart to what I mean. In the whole world, you know, there's a million boys and girls who are young, gifted, and black. And that's a fact. Here we go. You are young, gifted, and black. Good job. Oh, we must begin to tell our young. There's a world waiting for you. Yours is the quest that's just begun. When you're feeling real low, There's a great truth you should know. When you are young, gifted and black, your soul's intact. To be young, gifted and black. Oh, how I long to know the truth. There are times when I look back and I am haunted by my youth. Oh, but my joy of today is that we can all be proud to say, to be young, gifted, and black is where it's at, is where it's at, it's where it's at. That's Dexter. My name is Desiree Jaha. Be kind to one another. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Please continue giving it up for Desiree and Dexter. We're very honored to have them. And I also want to thank you all for joining us for, the stage part of our Red Books Day. And it's really, again, so invigorating to have all of us in the same room, to have all of us here talking about the legacy of Black liberation and also the legacy of socialism and what it means to fight for working people everywhere. The final piece of our Red Books Day, just because, music, books, and then art. We are setting up screen printing right now. So if you brought a shirt with you, maybe you're wearing a shirt and you want to see something on it, we have a really beautiful design. It has a quote from Langston Hughes and a really beautiful visual of the world splitting. Francesca's got it. Yeah, okay, I'm going to steal it. And a quote from Langston Hughes, the poem that Jalen read to us today. So if you have something you want to get screen printed, it's over there, or it's going to be set up soon. And then also, we have T-shirts for sale if you didn't bring something. So something for everyone. But that's just all to say. Thank you again so much for joining us for another Red Books Day, and for this Black and Red Books Day. And I hope to see you all at the People's Forum soon again. Don't forget to donate to Cuba, to us, and then also, donate yourselves, your time. We're so excited to see you all. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Happy Red Books Day.